So it's me, your friend, Leslie in Castelnaudary. This is my first video that I'm going to make for you here in Castelnaudary. It's raining, it's wintry, I can't take you around and show you anywhere, but I can take you into my experience and what I've experienced this first week here in Castelnaudary. So as I tell you my story, I'm going to be making supper for my family. It is almost 3 o'clock here in the afternoon. We had a late breakfast. We've been jet lagged and been waking up at like 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So we walked down to a bakery and we had pastries and we had our coffee, and then we decided to clean the house and relax. So while we were on our way doing all of these things this morning, I stopped by the farmer's market, very small farmer's market today, and I grabbed 3 things. And today you're going to be making with me some cauliflower, chou-fleur, little baby organic. We're going to slice up some shallots for our salad. And we have a chard here that we're going to steam and then toss with a little bit of butter and salt. So inside of the microwave, hidden away from the cats, is a poulet roti, which is a roasted chicken, a gigantic, succulent, juicy, freshly made, hot, roasted chicken that will serve us for at least 2 meals. So we paid about 26 euros for it. And when you separate between 4 people, that equals about 2 euros per person per meal. So that's a very good deal. And the price I expected to pay for organic at a farmer's market, I paid for all 3 of these things €1.50. So on top of that, we're going to have kind of frozen little potato puffs that the kids like. That way I know that they eat. So basically our whole meal is pretty much about 10 bucks, 10 euros. So what we're going to do is we're going to steam the cauliflower and the chard. And then we're going to just kind of put this in the oven a little bit. And then we're going to toss this with a little bit of butter. But to do that, we're going to have to put the oven on. So anyway, let's go. So if you've been following us and if you know me, and this is going to be a small group of people. So we're in the inner circle here. These initial followers, you've seen me have over 8,000 followers on my Instagram account at Leslie Inc. But I've since then dissolved my corporation in California, so that way I could move and live full-time here in Castelnaudary, France. So that process was very challenging. It was difficult only because it took a long time to sell a house in California and to find a new house here in France, which took us many months to do. And of course, if you know me and you've been following me, you know I had this big, beautiful pink custom craftsman villa type home that I had bought in 2016 with my husband. And we spent 8 years renovating and restoring it. And honestly, I look back and every penny that we had went into restoring the house or saving for the future. And so it felt like for many years that we were living month to month. And I was going through changes myself professionally. I was a celebrity career life coach for 14 years. I've worked with Olympians and professional athletes. I worked with executives of the hugest companies. I worked with politicians, with top lawyers. I worked with a lot of different people, and I just got tired of it. There wasn't really much more for me to do in it. I kind of seen it all in that landscape. And also, it's kind of just getting tired of like the egotism in that industry. It's just all about me, and how do I enrich myself? And it wasn't really about giving back. And if you know me, being a child of kind of like nonprofits, you know, I grew up in a Habitat house. I got my Christmas presents from Salvation Army. I got scholarships and grants and all these things. I was a military brat. Like, it just kind of started to eventually go against my own personal ethos of give back to the community, And it just started to become this whole world of personal enrichment. And I was starting to get annoyed by it and bored of it. And it just started to go, oh, well, how can we get the rich and egotistical richer? I was tired of that. I didn't want to do that anymore. So over the years, I had transitioned, did a lot of volunteering, a lot of give back. And my husband was working in corporate too, and we were getting tired, just working all the time. It felt like I was going 90 miles an hour every single day, like literally on the highway, on the 78, on the 15, on the 5. It felt like that psychologically and physically, and working all the time, going to law school, teaching myself the law. And then one day when we were on a cruise going up to Canada, my husband and I were like, we're tired. We want to make a change. And I was like, are we going to finally sell everything and move back to Europe? Because I had wanted to 2 years ago, but he didn't want to. He was scared. And then eventually he just got so tired of his corporate job and, you know, the stress of that and the ridiculousness of all of that. And we decided to sell our house, liquidate that asset, and buy a house in France. So that's kind of the long story short. And our first agent, who was somebody who helped us buy our house, he was like, oh, I can help you sell your house for sure. And then after a month, he started to get like doubtful. And then he was like gaslighting us and saying that it was our fault and there's no way that we could sell the house for more, blah, blah, blah. But I had a very specific vision that we would sell the house for a certain amount of money. And I just kept repeating that. I just knew it was going to happen. So we ended up parting ways with that agent, and we got a new one named Milena Botel. And that lady was like a freaking goddess on the hilltop. And she just put us in her arms, and she took care of us, and she got us that goal. I mean, incredibly, she got us to that goal. And she kind of psychologically carried us there. So I'm going to rinse these, and then we're going to put these here, and we're going to steam them. So I'll be right back. So as I had envisioned, we did sell the house for the exact price that we wanted to sell it for, as I had known it was going to sell it for. And it was like a hard time for me to adjust to the idea of leaving this house because there's many happy spirits there. I have birds. I couldn't take them, and I had to grieve. I had to go through counseling just to adjust to that psychological leap. And one morning, as I was cleaning the house and getting it ready for an open house, I literally could hear the house all of a sudden say, like a voicemail recording, "Thank you, goodbye." And it was like it hung up on me. And that morning I knew that the buyer of the house was coming. And lo and behold, she did. This woman who, like an angel, had just floated in and was like, she didn't even need the house. She just bought it anyway. And she lives down the road. And she said, okay, well, I'll buy it for my daughters or my family, whatever. And it was just kind of like this miracle. And everything happened so perfectly. And yet I was still so stressed. The elections had come. And 5 days before the elections had come, I knew that Donald Trump was going to win. And I was just sick about it. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I had indigestion. I couldn't breathe. And I just knew, being, somebody who'd gone to law school and who'd done a lot of legal history research for all my thesis papers, and with which I'm going to be publishing a book coming soon, was like, this country is headed into a lot of trouble, violence, hunger. There's going to be a lot of problems that are going to come, and I just knew it. And so nevertheless, we carried on, we got ready, we packed, we organized, we consolidated so we could fit everything that we owned into a 40-foot container. And it was exhausting to do all of that. I was so tired, my back hurt. And emotionally reeling from the fact that so many people that we had known locally had voted for Donald Trump. And it was like, how could you? It was like, how could you vote against yourself, working class person? How could you vote against your own family? How could you vote against your own interests? It was like really difficult emotionally for me. And anyway, you have to accept that. But then here I am feeling like, okay, this feels like we're not just leaving the country just because it's a life change. It feels like an escape. So there's grief there. And we get on the plane and we go, and you know, we have all these pets with us and 3 dogs and 2 cats and we're going, and, you know, it just was a lot to manage, but we made it and we're so tired. And I just got to Castelnaudary and immediately I just started to feel so sick, so ill and so sick I hadn't felt in years. And I'm going, what is going on with me, you know? Because I'm somebody who exercises every day. I take my vitamins, I eat my vegetables, I pray, I meditate. But the truth was, I hadn't been able to relax in quite some time. And then when the election happened, I didn't relax at all. And I knew that that was to my detriment. And so anyway, I'm sitting around in this rental and I'm seeing like this basket of pamphlets for tourist things to do in the area that the owners of this Airbnb had set out. And I noticed a coupon for a massage therapist. And I realized it was like the woman, the only person on Instagram who had reached out to me, who lives in Castelnaudary, and said, hey, I like your vibe, like contact me when you get here. And I'm thinking, I need to book a session with her. So I contact her and I ask her to book a session, and she's like, hey, like I'll fit you in any way I can. Like that kind of immediate hospitality. And I'm not going to waste that chance for somebody to help me. And if there's anything I learned during law school was you have to let people love you. You have to be vulnerable. You have to let people take care of you and nourish you and nurture you. And as somebody who was hyper independent because I was largely neglected by my parents, gave me the bare minimum, did their job is what my mom would call it. She said, I did my job. You know, I had to learn to take care of myself, but that's not sustainable. That is not healthy. So she fits me in and I go for this healing session. Now this is where things get super magical. So her name is Laura. She has this place called Zen and Tonique. And or Tonique and Zen. Anyway, anyway, very Zen. So I get over there and I go to her office. I walk there. It's like a 7-minute walk from my Airbnb, which is already miraculous on top of that. So I have this gorgeous little walk. She welcomes me in. She has this amazing energy. She has this amazing like office with this Thai massage table and little Buddha decorations all around. And it's just gorgeous. As she takes me in and I lay down on this massage table and she says, okay, get comfortable. So I get comfortable and then she starts to work on me. And I know I'm in for some kind of magic because I close my eyes and I immediately with my mind's eye see like this little Buddhist monk step forward who I feel is like helping. And I close my eyes and she starts doing this massage on my head and helping me and kind of moving the energy around. And I realize like, oh, she's doing like serious intuitive energy healing work. And so as she's doing that, all of a sudden, I start to cry. I start to really cry, like this deep crying. And all I can hear in my head is, I am sad for my country. And that feeling of grief about what is going to happen in the United States of America. And the grief of leaving behind all these friends who are going to go through, my gay friends, my trans friends, my Jewish friends, my black friends, my Mexican friends, my people, my working class friends who you know, my family who live on Social Security and disability, all of them are going to be under attack. And I'm just crying. And I realize, oh, I feel terrible. I feel like crap. Which makes sense because I had diarrhea the whole day and the day before. I just was so sick. And I was like, I feel like crap because I feel sad for my country. And as I'm leaving this energy behind, I'm seeing in my mind's eye this lightning cloud, this storm cloud, and it's lightning. And then all of a sudden I get lifted above this lightning cloud and I'm looking down at it. And I no longer feel that energy of that lightning cloud. And then I'm just swept away in my mind to this mountain where these goddesses are, these Sophias. And like Athena and Sophia and these goddess women are showing me what's currently going to happen in this country, right? and the United States. And so they show me these men who are Southern men, Southern working class men who don't agree with what is happening and who are working together to be a resistance, to protect workers' rights, to protect the sick, the elderly, the immigrant, and they're collaborating together. And then all of a sudden I see, and actually I hear Spirit say, the red states don't produce anything. And I see states like California that produce all the technology, who produce the medicine, who produce food, fruits and vegetables and all of that stuff, and their partnership with Mexico. Like, no food is being delivered to these red states. Like, no cooperation and collaboration is being sent to these states that are taking away women's health rights. Like, a pregnant woman in Texas can't get an operation while she's pregnant now. Like, a hospital can deny that. And I'm seeing like this resistance forming and trade wars forming within the country. And I'm seeing like violence and people coming after the rich and the billionaires. And I'm seeing this stuff happen. And I know from this place on this mountaintop, I'm not supposed to be there. I'm not supposed to be there. And that is why my soul and spirit has moved me here to Castelnaudary. And so then she starts massaging my solar plexus. And then all of a sudden I feel the presence of Mother Mary standing over me and looking over me. And then she starts rubbing on my lower area, my intestines. And then I'm seeing like these little black tapioca balls, kind of like in a boba, right here in my lower intestines. And I'm realizing that those are negative emotions that I had left here so I could work on them later. But I wasn't working on them. They were like bad interactions or things that I had stored here. And I'm like, oh, I'll work on that later, instead of dealing with it in the moment. Well, then what happened was I stored them there and it made me sick. And it was 2 balls, 2 interactions. One of them was with an Air France person who is discriminative against my husband, who has serious ADHD. We have these service animals, psychiatric service animals, and he was just so violent, so abusive. I can't even go into all the details because it would be very upsetting for anyone listening to this. But it was so humiliating and so embarrassing that I carry that little negative energy there. And I realized I needed to let it go. So as she's kind of laying her hands and then she lifts her hands up, I open my eyes for a split second. And when I open my eyes for a split second, I can see her hands glowing blue. I know, it sounds wild. Her hands are glowing blue. And all of a sudden, I see her just vacuum up these black little balls through her hands and then send them away. And it was just the wildest experience I'd ever had. And I instantly felt better. And so I finish the session. She finishes the session with me. And I get up and I'm like, I realize I need a vacation. Like this time here, before I move into my new house, this month before I move into my new house, the 2 months before I get all my stuff from the United States, from that shipping container, is a chance for me to relax. And I have not relaxed in quite some time. And so I get up and she's just so kind and so nice. She gives me a tea and we talk to each other and start to become friends and commiserate on what it's like being an energy worker, an intuitive healer, those kinds of things. And she tells me her story and I'm learning from her and I'm very eager to know, and it's like, my first week and I'm already making a friend, like here in Castelnaudary. And she says, she tells me, just do you. So be my intuitive self, do me, and I'll attract the right people, which is my philosophy. If you've read my books, It Pays to Be You. I definitely believe that to be true. But as that made me realize, it made me realize a tough night that I had the night before where I was like realizing that I needed to let go of some false assumptions about life. Like life is difficult, life is hard, life is painful. And start to realize that life is comforting, life is guiding me, life is nourishing me, life loves me. And try to change those attitudes that I have about myself and others. And so I leave that session and I go home. And also during that session, I hear my spirit say, you have colitis. So I'm like, okay, I need to go to the pharmacy. So Frank and I go to the pharmacy to kind of ask the pharmacist, like what medication or things that he or she recommends. So we go to this pharmacy down the street, and the pharmacist is a guy named Jacques. And he's talking to me, but he's listening to me. He's not like a pharmacist who just hears you and just whatever and just kind of points you in the direction, almost like you're not even a real person, like you're not having a real interaction, like a real person listening to me, looking me right in the eyes. And as he's listening to me and I'm explaining how I feel and what's going on, and when the last time I had this, which was 12 years ago after I gave birth to my daughter. And he said, you know, he's listening to me, and all of a sudden I see this like glint in his eye, like this magical glint in his eye, like this loving glint. And all of a sudden in that moment, when I saw that glint, I just immediately felt better, like the lower intestine stuff. And on a physical level. And he says, well, you know, I recommend you get some probiotics and some spasfone for the cramps, and take that and see how you feel. If you need it, come back. And he's listening to me, and I'm telling him like what is stressing me, and I'm telling him about the US, and I'm telling him about the stress that I've just endured. And he's actually listening to me, and he's being very kind. And I'm just thinking like, where am I? Like this, I picked this place off of a map based on a house that we liked. And here we are, and these people within the first couple of days are just so kind and so welcoming and so healing and so nurturing that I feel like I've left Kansas and I came to Oz. Yeah, I think that's good. So what I'm doing here is I'm letting the cauliflower steam. And then next to this, I want to put this chard. Let's not waste time. I'm kind of a simple cooking girl. I'm not in for complicated stuff. There's this really cool book that I really like called Vegetables Every Day. Simple ways to prepare vegetables. That's it. I want to go to the marché. I want to grab some vegetables. I want to do a simple method of cooking and be done. Get a nice roasted chicken. Now I can make a mean roasted chicken with potatoes and like tastiest gravy that you've ever seen in your life. But I just don't want to do that today. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take a little moment. I'm going to get the potatoes, and then we're going to put them in the oven. So we have these little potatoes called noisettes, pommes noisettes, croustillants et fondants. They're basically just like little frozen potato balls. Kids love them. Frank's a potato man. So we're just going to put these in. And we're just going to put that in with the protein. So everybody gets some potatoes. We're just going to leave them here on the counter until I feel like this is adequately steamed. You see here we have the heat escaping. It's an Airbnb. You don't have all the tools. So kind of limited as to how we can cook, but we're kind of camping. So anyway, so I start to take the probiotic and I start to feel very much better. And over the next 2 days, I am the tiredest I've ever been, like so tired. Like as I'm walking, I could pass out. And I realized that that's my time to sleep. That's my time to rest. That's my time to give myself complete solitude. And also I realized, and I think if you're watching this, you can relate, that you don't realize how strong you're being until you don't have to be strong anymore. And for me, you know, finishing law school, getting my house ready to sell, putting things in storage, painting, organizing, cleaning every day, dealing with buyers who were trying to scam us, like organizing an international move, getting rid of things that we're not going to take, deciding what we're going to take, trying to ship the birds, deciding not to ship the birds, leaving behind all my friends. Like all of that was so emotional. And then trying to meet a financial goal so I can live this new life here in Castelnaudary and pay off a house and buy a car and all these things. Like it was just so much. And without all that stimulus, without all that stress, without having to drive 90 miles an hour on the 5 and not having to like work all the time and clean and do all these things, like all of that stimulus was gone, which was kind of funny because a friend of mine named Pam, a close friend, she said she had a dream about me. And right before I left the United States, she said, I had a dream that you were very overstimulated and kind of to leave you alone to let you recover. And she was totally right. She was absolutely right. And then another friend, Lori, within a few days of that, messaged me and says, I had a dream about you, and you need to just surrender to this new life, let go of everything. And she was right. And so that's what I had done these last few days, is completely surrender from my old life and be born again in this new life. And I've slept so much, still jet lagged, but it's amazing how much better I feel. I honestly, as I was taking the shower last night, I realized I have not felt this relaxed and at peace probably in almost 20 years. Because in that time, I met my husband. We had the recession, trying to make money and have a career for myself. I'm trying to become the person I want to be. I have a kid. I have 2 kids. I have a house. All these things of adulthood. When you're in the process of becoming adulthood, you go through all of this, and then you don't have to go through it anymore. And you've left kind of like the clouds, and now you're above it. I always reckon this to that metaphor of flying in Paris. Like, Paris has always this perpetual level of clouds above it. And when you fly above it, you see the sunshine. And I just finally feel I'm in the sunshine. That I'm not striving anymore, professionally, financially. Like, I've reached all of my goals. And now it's to live this new life. And it's to discover these people, to discover this town. I love this vibe. I love this people. The people were so helpful with the administration. They spent 3 hours doing paperwork with my husband the other day for moving and getting the moving trucks. A lady at the mairie was like, oh yeah, it's easy. We'll send the police to help block things for you. It's very unusual for France. But for some odd reason, I think I've made it in this point of my life where it doesn't have to be so hard. Maybe life doesn't have to be so hard. Maybe I can be vulnerable and let people love me and guide me. And France is a very maternal country. It's very maternal. And I just feel like maybe I just need to let it nourish me. And another thing that Laura, the intuitive massage therapist, said was like, it feels like I'm returning to something old that I'm returning to, and that this is a next level of my life, like leveling up. And she's right. I don't know yet how it's going to be. I don't know yet like how it's going to go. You're kind of coming in with me on this journey in real life. I don't script anything I say. I don't have anything to sell you. You want to buy my books? Go on Amazon. Yeah. I don't have anything to sell you. So it's here, me documenting this journey. Anyone who watches it, who's curious about what it's like to, I don't know, be this woman who has made a life and a career and a home for herself, decides to sell it all and go back to France. I don't know, but that's my journey. So before I finish this off here, it seems like this camping has not given us too much results here on the steam factor. I'm just going to show you the chicken. So let's see the chicken. They gave us some fat and grease. They call it the sauce, but they're not really sauce for me. We're going to put it in a plate so we can cut it up and serve it later. But it is so gorgeous, totally organic. It is huge, very heavy and succulent. Tastes delicious. I don't know where I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna put this here. I'm gonna show this. So here's the chicken, nice and succulent. It's not light, it's very heavy. Has the wings. So we're gonna put that here. We're gonna have the sauce here. And it tastes so good. I'm gonna take a little bite for you. Salty, buttery, juicy. We're gonna put that in here. Let's decide what we want to do with this. It's softening up a little bit, but not as much as we want. So I'm actually thinking we'll take all this and we'll just put it into a roasting pan. Drizzle some oil on it, some butter, and let it cook. I'm a big roasting kind of gal, so we're just going to do that. Like if things don't work out the way you want, improvise. You know what I'm saying? Actually, what we'll do is we're going to make a bed of this chard. I love that. I'm going to turn this off because it's not doing anything for us. Make the bed. Age a little bit. I'm going to put this on here. Even just barely steamed is tasty. Let's get some butter. We're just going to slather some butter on here. Girl, I'll tell you. I feel so much better though. I feel so much better being in France. I feel so much more at peace. You know, France has its fair share of issues, etc., but I have been speaking to people who are old enough to have gone through World War II and are like, we are scared for Americans. They have no idea what's going on between Russia and China and South Korea. Like, they just don't even get it. And there are monuments here, all in France, reminding of whole families who were decimated during World War I and World War II. And you are reminded every day of what authoritarianism could do when every single civil right is stepped back and the government becomes weaponized. It's scary, girl. So this is what we're going to do. We're just going to put butter on it. We're going to put some salt. And we're not going to think too much about this. I think kind of like that's what is good about French cooking. Doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes you get it pre-made. Sometimes you just let the experts cook it for you. Put it in there. It's at 210 degrees Celsius. A little over. We're going to put it in the oven. We're just going to let it cook. I'm just going to see what happens. So what I'll do is I'll take some pictures of what I've finished making and I'll share it with you so you can kind of see the end result. But that is, in summary, my experience here in Castelnaudary so far. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any ideas of what I should make, I'd be happy to do that for you. But I don't really have an agenda. I don't have a social media strategy. This is not a business. This is just a girl taking you into her world. So yes, like and subscribe, share the channel if you want, or don't. It doesn't matter to me. Thanks for joining me. I'm Leslie Juvin-Acker, and this is Leslie in Castelnaudary. Bon appetit from Leslie in Castelnaudary.